Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. I dropped my pen and it rolled under her chair. My hand reached, then stopped like it hit a wall. The new girl's boot pinned it without meaning to. I told myself it was nothing, and I still didn't move. I'm Ethan, 32, and I hate how fast I panic. My throat went dry, then my brain started lying. Just a new student, just a study group. My fingers stayed under that chair, useless and tense. Sorry, she lifted her foot, quick and polite. I grabbed the pen like it was evidence. I shoved it in my notebook, then forced a smile. Her eyes flicked to my ring finger and lingered there. We were supposed to be reviewing for the exam. Instead, I kept watching her hands on the table. Clean nails, no shaking, no hesitation. That calm hit me harder than any insult. Hey, I'm Marissa, she offered a hand, steady. I took it, then my palms started to sweat. Her grip was firm, like she expected pushback. I let go too fast and she noticed. You know that feeling when a sound rewires your day? Her voice did that, sharp and familiar. Not the words, just the shape of it. My face stayed neutral, but my chest went tight. I tried to speak and the first word died. So I nodded like a bobblehead, pathetic and stiff. One of the guys cracked a joke and everyone laughed. I laughed too, and it came out wrong. She slid into the empty seat like she belonged there. I told myself to focus and I failed fast. My eyes kept drifting to her profile. I hated that part of me, the part that kept checking. Single dad, one girl pointed at my phone wallpaper. I snatched the phone like it was a weapon. Yeah, the words scraped out of me. Marissa's eyebrows lifted, like she already knew. My buddy Devin leaned close, whispering about flashcards. I nodded again, still not hearing him. Marissa pulled out a folder, neat and organized. The label on it made my stomach do a drop. It wasn't my name, but it was close. Same first letter, same last initial. I watched her flip it open, slow and careful. My brain started stacking coincidences like they were bricks. I told myself to stand up and walk out. Instead, I asked a dumb question about Chapter 10. She answered fast, like she practiced it. Then she smiled at me and my skin crawled. I grabbed my water bottle, pretending I needed a sip. My hand shook and the cap clicked too loud. Nobody cared, but I felt exposed anyway. Marissa's gaze followed that, shaking like she logged it. Do you have the notes from last week? Devin asked. I slid my notebook across the table. Marissa glanced down, then looked up at me again. Her eyes went to the corner where I doodled my son's name. Caleb, big letters, a stupid little star. I never wrote it on purpose, it just happened. Marissa's lips parted like she might say it out loud. I covered the page with my forearm, too late. She leaned back, then tapped her pen twice. A tiny rhythm, controlled and quiet. I had heard that exact tap before, somewhere awful. The memory didn't land fully, but it reached for me. My pulse started pounding in my throat. I told myself I was being dramatic, and I was. Still, my brain kept replaying her voice. It sounded like a courtroom microphone and a held breath. Are you okay? Devin's hand nudged my elbow. I snapped out a nod, too sharp. My chair scraped as I shifted away from Marissa. She didn't move closer, which made it worse. She flipped a page, then paused on one line. I watched her mouth the words silently, like she was training herself not to say something. That restraint felt like a threat. I stood up so fast my knee hit the table. Pens jumped, a couple people cursed. I mumbled bathroom and bolted before anyone could stop me. Behind me, Marissa's voice followed, calm as a blade. Ethan, just my name, clean and sure. I stopped in the doorway like I got hooked. I never introduced myself to her, not once. And she said it like we had history. I turned on my heel and walked straight into the wrong hallway. My feet kept going anyway, like my body chose for me. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I ignored it. Then that one word echoed again in my skull, Ethan. I ducked into the restroom and locked myself in a stall. Yeah, I know how that sounds, grown man hiding. I pressed my forehead to the door and breathed through my mouth. My hands did that useless tremor again, like they wanted to confess. I pulled up the class roster on the student portal. I told myself I just wanted her last name. That's a lie, I wanted proof I was not losing it. Her name sat there in plain text, daring me to blink. My thumb hovered, then I screenshotted it like a thief. I stared at those letters until they stopped being letters. My chest tightened in that old familiar pattern. I had seen that last name printed on a courtroom display. I flushed the toilet without using it, just for noise. Then I washed my hands like that could reset anything. The mirror showed a guy trying to look normal and fine. Ling. I practiced a smile and it looked like a warning. My phone buzzed again and I finally looked. Devin had texted, "You good or you bailing?" I typed kid emergency, then deleted it. I typed bathroom, then deleted that too. I sent "be back in a minute." My lie landed with a tiny delivered checkmark. I hated that I cared about the checkmark. Then another message came in and it hit harder. It was from Marissa. Yeah, she had my number already, which was insane. "Sorry if I freaked you out," the text read. Under it was a second line that made my stomach drop: "Single dads get judged." I stared at the screen until it dimmed. How did she even get my contacts? Seriously? I thought of that folder neat and labeled. Then I remembered she watched my notebook like it mattered. I shoved the phone away and walked back anyway. I told myself I could act normal for 10 minutes. I pushed the classroom door open and the room got quieter. Not silent, just that tense half-second when everyone clocks you. Devin lifted his brows like, "Dude, what was that?" I gave him a small shrug that meant nothing. Across the table, Marissa didn't look surprised at all. She just slid a sheet of notes toward my empty spot like we were fine. I didn't sit. I stayed standing and pointed at the notes. "Where did you get those?" My voice came out thin. Her hand froze on the paper and I felt the shift. "I asked for last week's outline," she said, then looked away. One of the others laughed nervously, like this was a joke. I didn't laugh and nobody else tried again. Marissa's eyes cut back to me, sharp and measuring. Devin tapped the table once, a subtle warning to chill. I leaned closer to him instead, keeping my stare forward. "Did you give her my number?" I asked under my breath. His face did that quick guilty twitch and I knew. "She asked if you had the notes," he muttered. "She said you were stressed," and I believed it. I wanted to snap at him, but it wasn't his fault. Still, my throat filled with that bitter heat because she played him. I grabbed my bag and started for the door again. Devin caught my sleeve, then let go fast. "Bro, what is going on?" His whisper shook. I didn't answer because the answer felt radioactive. Marissa stood up slowly, palms open like she was handling glass. "Can we talk outside?" She kept her voice low. I should have said no right there, firm and loud. Instead, I nodded once, like an idiot signing something unseen. In the hallway, she stopped 2 steps away from me. Not too close, not too far. That choice felt deliberate, like she learned distance as a survival skill. I hated that I noticed, and I hated what it implied. "You're in my program?" I asked. She nodded, then swallowed like the motion hurt. "I didn't pick your group," she said, quick and careful. That sounded rehearsed, which made it worse. "Then why my name?" I jabbed a finger at her phone. Her eyes flashed, then softened like she forced it. "I asked Devin," she said, and that part checked out. But she didn't answer the real question, why she typed it so easily. I stepped closer before I could stop myself. "Do I know you?" The words came out raw. She held my gaze for a beat too long. Then she nodded once like a verdict. My stomach flipped and my mouth went dry again. She didn't rush to explain, and that silence was violent. She just breathed and waited for me to say the obvious. So I said it, even though it burned, from the trial. Her face tightened like I slapped her. Then she looked down at her hands, then back up. "I was there," she admitted, and didn't dodge it. My knees went weak for half a second, and she saw that too. I backed up until my shoulder hit the wall. I was suddenly aware of every person walking past us. I didn't want witnesses, yet I didn't want to be alone. My brain kept screaming one thought: get away from her. "I'm not here to mess with you," she said. She lifted her ID badge like it was a shield. "I'm trying to finish school, that's it." Her voice stayed steady, and I hated that steadiness. I laughed once, short and ugly. "Yeah, sure," I shot back, then hated myself. I sounded like the worst version of me, the bitter one. But bitterness was safer than breaking in public. She flinched at my tone, then held her ground. "I didn't choose your life," she said, then stopped. Her mouth opened again, then closed like she almost said more. That pause told me she knew details I never gave her. My phone buzzed again and I didn't look. I couldn't look because my hands were clenched tight. Marissa's eyes flicked to my pocket like she expected a call. Then she said the one thing she should not know, your son has soccer tonight. I went still. I didn't even breathe, not for a second. She saw it land and her face went pale. And I realized she wasn't guessing anymore, she was tracking me. I don't remember how I ended up back in the classroom. One moment. I was outside, then the door opened and there I was. Marissa was sitting still with that look. Like I was the one who owed answers, not her. The whole group shifted uncomfortably as I slid into my seat. I couldn't focus on the notes in front of me. The paper felt like it was burning my fingers. I kept glancing at her and she didn't even blink. Let's get back to work, Devin said, trying to fill the silence. I couldn't do it, I couldn't keep pretending. Her voice, Ethan, kept replaying in my head. The way she said it like she knew me, really knew me. I stared at the table, my thoughts in chaos. I didn't want to confront her, I couldn't, not right there. But I was tired of running from it. Why did you say my name? I blurted out, the words spilling. She didn't flinch, she didn't even seem surprised. Because you're Ethan, she said like it was nothing. You're Caleb's dad, the one who, she stopped herself. The room went colder, everyone was listening, but nobody was talking. I wanted to scream at her, ask her how she knew. But I stayed frozen in place, every part of me stiff. She had my son's name, that was crossing a line. I opened my mouth but no sound came out. She was calm, too calm. I hated that about her, the way she held it all in like a secret. Like I didn't matter enough for a reaction. Don't you want to know how I know? She asked. I wanted to say no, but my mouth didn't obey. I nodded and I swear I saw a flicker of something behind her eyes. A hint of regret, or maybe it was guilt. I was at the trial, she said softly. I was one of the witnesses. The room felt smaller, like I couldn't breathe. Everything blurred except her, standing there too close. I was choking on her words. How could she bring that up like it was nothing? How could she just say that to my face? My voice cracked, I gripped the edge of the desk. I felt like I was going to lose it. She didn't flinch, she just watched me like she was waiting for me to break. Why are you here? I finally managed to ask. Why the hell are you in my class? She didn't answer right away. She just stared at me with that same, unreadable expression. And I couldn't tell if she was sorry or if she was daring me to explode. I need to finish my degree, she said finally, just like anyone else. My fingers clenched into fists. I wanted to punch something, her, the wall, anything. But I stayed still, breathing shallow, trying to keep the panic in check. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. You don't belong here, I spat, my voice low and cold. I don't belong here, she tilted her head like she couldn't believe I said it. Not like this, I snapped, not like you are. She looked at me, then glanced at the others in the room. They were all looking away, pretending they didn't hear us. I couldn't focus on them, I couldn't focus on anything but her face. The calm in her eyes, the calm that made me feel like I was losing. Maybe I'm here because I don't have anywhere else to go, she said quietly. I couldn't even process it, my mind kept spinning back to the trial. Her testimony, her words, the way everything shifted when she spoke. It felt like it was happening again, all over, in that same sterile courtroom. Why are you doing this to me? I asked more quietly now. I could barely hear my own voice, it cracked and I hated that. I'm not doing anything to you, Ethan, she said, her voice finally soft. I didn't want any of this. I stood up abruptly, knocking my chair back. Then why the hell are you here? I shouted, feeling the room spin. Her face didn't change, not a single muscle. I told you I'm here for my degree. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I grabbed my bag, then froze. Stay away from my son, I said, low and dangerous. It felt like a promise, a threat, I didn't care which. She didn't say anything, just stared at me. I felt the tension in the air thickening, like we were both holding our breaths. Finally, she looked away, back at the group. Your son won't even know I'm here, she said. You have my word. I walked out, not knowing if I should feel better or worse. Her words hung in the air, smothering me. Her words, like that meant anything. I was already too far gone, I couldn't go back now. Outside, I leaned against the wall, my heart racing. I'd walked out in the middle of class, in the middle of the mess. And I didn't care, not anymore. I texted Caleb's coach, I'm on my way, be there in 10. I didn't want to be here anymore, in this place. But I couldn't walk away. Not from this, not from her. And I hated myself for that. I grabbed my keys and nearly tore the door off. My phone showed the practice time and my pulse jumped. I kept picturing her standing near my kid. That image pushed my foot harder on the gas. I pulled into the lot and scanned faces like a guard. Parents' bags, cones, the usual noise. Then I saw her car near the far edge. My throat locked because of course it was her. I walked fast, then faster, then too fast. I told myself I would stay calm this time. That promise lasted maybe 3 steps. I spotted her by the trunk and my hands curled. She noticed me and didn't run. She didn't wave either, which felt worse. She just lifted both palms like I was a dog. And yeah, I took that personally. Why are you here? My voice came out tight. She glanced past me, then back to my eyes. I'm not here for him, she said fast. My gaze followed hers and my stomach turned. My kid was on the field, laughing with teammates. I froze because he looked safe. Then I hated myself for feeling relief. Because the fear came right back hotter. Back up, I snapped, stepping between her and the field. She did back up 2 full paces. That little compliance should have helped, but it didn't. It felt like she had rehearsed it. You cannot show up here, I said low and sharp. Her jaw tightened, then she nodded once. You're right, she said and swallowed hard. That right sounded like a trap door opening. I pulled out my phone and held it up. I'm calling someone, I warned, then hesitated. Calling who exactly and saying what? My thumb hovered and she watched it. Please don't, she said, voice steady but thin. Her eyes flicked again toward the field. She kept her body angled away from my kid. That detail messed with my head and I hated it. Then talk, I snapped, now. She nodded again, then reached into her bag slowly. My shoulders tensed like I expected a weapon. She pulled out a small round chip and set it on her palm. It was stamped with a number and a month. She held it out, then stopped short of my space. I'm sober, she said like it was a password. I stared at that little coin and felt nothing soften. You think that fixes it? I asked, voice shaking. Her eyes flinched, then she kept looking anyway. No, she said, I think it explains why I'm alive. That word hit me hard, alive. I took 1 step closer, then stopped myself. My fists were tight enough to hurt. I pictured my kid turning his head and seeing this. That thought yanked me back like a leash. She pointed with 1 finger, careful and small. There's an app, she said, nodding toward the field. Team schedules are public, she added like she hated herself. I felt my face go hot because she was right. So you looked us up, I said, voice cracking. Her shoulders rose and fell once. I saw your name, she said. I panicked too. Hearing her say that made my skin crawl. I barked a laugh that sounded wrong even to me. You panicked, I repeated like it was a joke. She didn't react, which made me feel uglier. Then she did something that changed the whole moment. She pulled out folded papers and held them out. Not closed, not forceful, just there. Read the top line, she said quietly. My eyes caught a seal and my mouth went dry. I didn't take them at first. I stared like paper could bite. Then I snatched them and scanned for the one thing. Her name was there, with probation right under it. My chest tightened, then loosened, then tightened again. I hated how my body kept doing that. I looked up and she was watching my face. It felt like being measured for damage. You're on probation, I said, voice flat. She nodded, then pointed at the next page. Conditions, she said, no alcohol, no violations. Her mouth twitched like she expected me to laugh again. I flipped pages too fast and nearly tore one. I saw dates, signatures, and a line about treatment. This was real paperwork, not some sad story. My anger shifted shape and that scared me. I shoved the papers back at her chest. She caught them and held them tight like armor. Why are you giving me this? I asked. She took a breath like she was stepping off a ledge. Because you're going to dig, she said. And you're going to find things out of order. I'm trying to keep you from snapping, she added softly. That last word made my jaw clench, snapping. Don't tell me what I'm going to do, I hissed. She nodded again, but her eyes stayed locked. You already followed me, she said, not accusing, just stating. My face burned because she was right. I looked away toward the field and forced my hands open. My kid tripped, then popped back up, grinning. I felt my throat tighten in a different way, because I knew how close I was to ruining his day. Say it, I said, still watching the field. Say what you are to this. My voice sounded too calm, which scared me more. She waited one beat, then she said it. I was the driver, she said, steady and quiet. I was drunk, she added, like she refused to soften it. I caused the crash, she finished, eyes wet but unblinking. My vision narrowed, like the world hated me. I turned on her so fast I almost stumbled. My hands twitched and I hated my own body. Every part of me wanted one simple thing. I intended to hurt her. She didn't step back, which made me furious. She just kept her hands visible, open and empty. I'm not here to beg, she said, voice tight. I'm here because you saw me, she added, and that felt like blame. Stop talking like this is teamwork, I snapped. She flinched for the first time, small and real. Then she nodded like she deserved it. That nod made me want to throw up. I pointed toward the field without looking. If he sees you, I will lose it, I said. She nodded again and shifted so my kid couldn't see her. That one move cracked something in my chest, and I hated that too. Why join my group, I demanded. She shook her head quick. I didn't choose it, she said, I chose the class. My brain screamed convenient. She reached into her bag again, slower this time. I held my ground, watching every inch. She pulled out a small card and held it up. It looked like a clinic appointment reminder, with my kids' practice times scribbled. You wrote the time down, I said, voice rising. She nodded, then her face tightened. I wrote it because you said it in the hallway, she said. Then she added, I checked the app after because I freaked out. My stomach turned sharp. Not because it made sense, but because it almost did. That's the worst part, honestly, the almost. It gives your brain a place to hide. I stepped closer and dropped my voice. You ever come near my kid again, I started. She cut in fast, I won't. Her eyes were fierce, like she needed me to believe it. That fierce look made my skin prickle. I stared at her face and tried to see a monster. Sometimes I did, and sometimes I saw a scared adult. That second version made me angry at myself. Because I didn't want nuance, I wanted rage. I saw you on the stand, I said, voice strained. She nodded once, then looked down. I told the truth, she said, and her voice shook. I wanted to scream because truth didn't bring anyone back. She swallowed and rubbed her thumb over that chip. It was the first time I said it out loud, she whispered. I said I was drunk, she added, eyes glassy. Hearing her own it like that hit me, and I hated the hits. I clenched my teeth and forced one question out. Why remember my kid's schedule, I demanded. She looked toward the field again, then away. Because you're the dad, she said softly, and that sounded like pity. Don't pity me, I snapped too fast. She shook her head hard, like she was mad at herself. It isn't pity, she said, it's guilt that doesn't shut up. That line landed and stuck like a thorn. She took a step back and looked at the pavement. I come here after meetings, she said, quiet. I sit in my car and try not to drive anywhere, she added. My chest tightened because that was the first honest thing I felt. I stared at her and felt my anger wobble. Not fade, not forgive, just wobble. That wobble scared me more than rage. Because wobble means you might change. She lifted her head again, eyes shining but steady. There's something you don't know, she said. My spine went rigid, like my body recognized the danger. I hated that I leaned in anyway. She reached into her bag and pulled out one more page. It was creased, like it had been read too many times. She held it out and her hand shook. This is from the evidence packet, she said, and my throat closed. I didn't want to take it, but I did. My fingers trembled against the paper, and I hated that weakness. It was a transcript excerpt, short and brutal. My eyes found a line and the world tilted. It was my wife's voice written in plain text. A sentence the paramedic caught right before everything went quiet. I stared until the words stopped making sense. Then I looked up at Marissa and she flinched again. You knew this, I whispered, voice wrecked. She nodded, tears finally spilling. I heard it that night, she said, voice breaking. I repeat it when I want to drink, she added, and that broke something else. My hands clenched the page so hard it crumpled. I wanted to rip it, burn it, erase it. Instead, I shoved it back toward her chest. Don't carry her words like a charm, I spat, and my voice shook. She took the page and held it like it weighed a ton. I don't carry it to feel better, she said, raw. I carry it because I deserve to remember, she added. That sentence hit me because it wasn't about me. I turned away toward the field again, breathing hard. My kid was running drills, smiling like nothing was wrong. I wanted to keep him in that bubble forever. Behind me, Marissa stood silent, waiting for my next move. I wiped my face with my sleeve and hated myself for it. I wasn't going to cry in a parking lot. I wasn't going to give her that picture to store. Then I realized she wasn't recording anything, she was just there. Why show me this now? I asked, voice low. She swallowed and wiped her own face fast. Because you're going to confront me again, she said. And next time might be in front of him, she finished, and my stomach clenched. I stared at her and felt the choice forming. I could explode and make a scene. Or I could swallow it and stay a parent first. I hated that those were my options, both tasted like loss. Get out of this lot, I said, voice tight. She nodded and reached for her keys slow. Then she stopped like she needed one last thing. Can I say one sentence? She asked, and my heart thudded. I should have said no. I didn't, I just stood there, jaw locked. She took a breath like it hurt, then spoke fast. I'm sorry I lived, she said, and the words cut deep. I stood frozen while she got into her car. She didn't look at my kid, not once. She started the engine, then hesitated at the exit. For a second I thought she would come back, and my blood ran cold. Then she drove off, clean and controlled. I watched until the car disappeared from the lot. My hands were shaking, and I hated that too. Because I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore, and that scared me. I slammed my laptop shut when her name popped up again. The group chat pinged with a new meeting time. My hands moved before my brain caught up. I typed new location, then paused on send because I knew why. I walked into the library and chose a table by the desk. Not for the view, not for comfort. For witnesses, for cameras. For the tiny safety of being watched if things turned ugly. Devin arrived first and looked guilty on sight. He opened his mouth and I held up one finger. Not yet, my voice came out calm, which scared him. He sat down slow like he expected a hit. The others filed in, laughing too loud. You know that fake loud laugh people do around tension. I nodded like everything was fine, then didn't smile. They all noticed and the air changed. She came last and stopped at the end of the table. No greeting, no sorry, just her eyes on my hands. I hated that she tracked my hands like a weather report. Then she sat down anyway, like she had the right. I slid a sheet of paper to the center. It wasn't notes, it wasn't a schedule. It was 3 rules in plain language. Everyone stared and nobody touched it. Rule 1 was simple, no personal talk. Rule 2 was colder, no outside contact. Rule 3 was the knife, no accidents near my kid. I watched her face, waiting for the crack. Devin cleared his throat and tried to joke. I cut him off with a look and he stopped. One girl whispered, "Is this about her?" My silence answered, and it felt brutal. She leaned forward a little and kept her hands visible. I can follow those, she said, voice low. No argument, no blame, just acceptance. That should have eased me, but it didn't. I nodded once, then pointed at Devin's phone. How did she get my number? I asked. He rubbed his neck and looked at the table. I gave it, he admitted, and the room went stiff. I wanted to explode at him. Instead, I breathed through my nose like a bull. Never again, I said. It's not my number, not my kid. Devin nodded fast like he just saw the cliff edge. She watched Devin get scolded and didn't look smug. That detail threw me off balance. I expected a grin, I expected victory. Instead, she looked tired, which made me uneasy. The session started and I forced my eyes on the work. I answered questions, I corrected formulas, I kept it moving. Every time she spoke I flinched inside, then hid it. I hated my own flinch because it made me feel owned. Halfway through, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from the coach. Good practice, Caleb asked for you. My lungs unlocked like I had been holding air. Then I realized she could see my screen, and I angled it away. She noticed the move and nodded like she deserved it. That small nod was almost worse than a fight. It made me feel like the villain in my own life. And yeah, that thought made me angry too. After the meeting, everyone left in a rush. Nobody wanted to be the last one near us. Devin tried to linger, then bailaed when I didn't look at him. Soon it was just me and her, and the hum of quiet. I stood up and zipped my bag with shaking fingers. I wanted to walk away clean, I wanted to be done. Then she slid something across the table, not toward me. It stopped halfway, like she was afraid to push. I didn't touch it at first. It was a small envelope with no stamp. My name was written on it in neat block letters. My stomach turned because I knew that handwriting. I didn't follow you, she said quickly. I got your name from the roster, she added. I stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. Then I asked the one question that mattered, what is this? A request, she said, and her voice broke on it. Read it later, she added, eyes fixed on the tabletop. I felt my jaw clench so hard it hurt. Say it now, I told her, because I needed control. She swallowed and looked up, eyes shining but steady. I'm dropping the class, SH. He said. I'll take the fail, she added, like she was bracing for relief. My chest tightened because relief was not what I felt. You ever get what you demanded and still feel sick? That was me right there standing over her. I realized I didn't want her gone like that. I wanted safety, not surrender. Why? I asked, and my voice came out rough. She tapped the envelope with one finger. Because I keep making you look over your shoulder, she said. That sentence landed, and it wasn't wrong. I picked up the envelope and felt my hands tremble. I hated the tremble, so I crushed it. Not the letter, just the impulse. Then I set it back down because I didn't trust myself. If you drop, I said, you still exist. She blinked like she didn't expect that. You'll still be out there, I added, and I'll still be angry. Her face tightened because she understood the trap. She inhaled slow and controlled. I'm trying to remove myself from your life, she said. That's the only thing I can offer, she added. I stared at her and felt my control slipping. I leaned closer and lowered my voice. You don't get to buy peace, I said. And you don't get to punish yourself in my name, I added. Her hands clenched once, and that was the first real crack. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she snapped. Then she stopped and pressed her lips together. She looked embarrassed by the snap, like she hated her own heat. That flash of messiness felt human, and it scared me. I stepped back and rubbed my forehead hard. Sincerely, I felt like I was losing my mind. Part of me wanted to report her. Part of me wanted to never hear her voice again, and both parts felt ugly. I grabbed the envelope and slid it into my bag. I'm not reading this tonight, I said. If there's any hint of my kid in it, we're done, I added. She nodded fast, like that line mattered. She stood up and kept her distance. I'll keep the rules, she said. No contact, no extra info, no showing up, she added. Then she paused and her next words cut. I asked Devin about you before I met you, she said. My stomach dropped hard like I got punched. I wanted to know what kind of man you were, she added quietly. The room felt smaller because she admitted planning. I stared at her and felt rage boil fresh. So you studied me, I said, voice sharp. She didn't deny it, she didn't soften it. She just nodded and waited for impact. I wanted to shout, I wanted to scare her. Instead, I did the strangest thing. I laughed once, short and bitter, then stopped. Because my kid needed me stable, and I could feel myself wobbling. Here's the deal, I said, voice low and tight. You stay in the group, you follow the rules. If you break them, I report it, I added. She nodded again, and I hated that the nod felt like trust. She reached for her bag and paused. Open the letter when you're alone, she said softly. Then she turned away without looking back. And I stood there, staring at the empty chair like it could accuse me. That night, I sat at my kitchen table after bedtime. I pulled the envelope out and held it like a live wire. My fingers ripped it open before I could stop them. Then I saw the first line and my throat closed. It wasn't an apology, it wasn't a plea. It was a check made out to a youth league fund. In the memo line was my wife's first name. And under it, one sentence that made me shake. I can't undo it, so I'm trying to pay forward. My eyes blurred and I wiped them hard. I felt furious, then grateful, then furious again. And in that mess, I realized the worst truth. I was starting to build a rulebook for my grief. Not for justice, not for healing. Just for control, because control felt like air. And the next time I saw her in that study group, I knew I could fail it.